Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the That Was Stupid podcast. I am your host, John Seidel. As always, that still has not changed in 2 seasons. Speaking of seasons, this is the final episode of season 2. We have had such a great roster of guests, everyone from a former NASA employee to a grilling champion to authors who have had affairs and had redemption, to people who were in cults. I mean, that's why I just love this podcast, is the breadth of people we can include on it who have That Was Stupid stories. And so today we end the season with one of my favorite guests, because of the impact that he's making on the world through what he's doing and through his stupid decision. But before we get to that, I want to remind you that That Was Stupid is sponsored and brought to you by the Veritas Creative. If you have a podcast idea, if you have a book idea, if you have any other digital media needs, go ahead and reach out to the Veritas Creative at theveritascreative.com, and they will help you strategize and market and get your ideas into the wide world of the internet, or maybe even publish a book if you'd like that to happen. So our guest today, his name is Josh Doyle. I've known Josh for years. We're going to talk a little bit about a trip that we took together where we got to know each other really well. But Josh has started an organization called I Found the Truth that films and releases stories of Muslims who have had incredible experiences with Jesus and left Islam to follow Jesus. And Josh started this not thinking that it would be as successful as it is. And when I say that this is successful, oh my Lord, wait until you hear how successful it has become on YouTube. So we're going to talk to Josh about what it took to get that started, the backlash that he has received, the death threats even, and that have made that, in a sense, a stupid decision, and yet why he continues to soldier on. So without further ado, let's talk to Josh Doyle from I Found the Truth. Josh, thank you so much for joining the That Was Stupid podcast. I had the pleasure and honor of being a guest on your podcast, No Longer Nomads, which we can plug and will plug a little bit later. And I am now so honored to get the chance to have you on my podcast, especially because we share a very interesting part of life together. I've written about it in my book, but you and I went on what I would call the trip of a lifetime.
Yes.
A few years back with your brother Tommy to Alaska. And so tell everyone, what was it like going to Alaska fishing trip with us two knuckleheads?
Well, man, John, thanks for having me on the show. Pumped to be here. And that trip, man, I still will pull those photos up just to, I mean, like right away, I'll meet someone and, oh, I love adventure. I've gone here and here, and we go to Colorado, once a year. And it's not a trump card. I'm not trying to trump anyone with it, but when you go to Alaska and you stay, in the woods by yourself in a cabin with no access to humanity, I mean, the only way in and out is through airplane. I feel like that's pretty sweet. And so I didn't mean it as a one-up, but how can you not share photos of that trip? Not every day you get flown in on an airplane and dropped off for a week and, well, figure it out, have fun. You didn't pack enough food, enough water. Yeah. Well, hopefully you'll be fine. So, dude, incredible adventure.
Hopefully you catch enough fish.
I'll never forget. Yeah, exactly. I'll never forget. We landed, and I've got a video of you as a plane is starting to take off, and it takes off into the sunset, and there's just these fjords in the background. And then I pan over, and as I pan over, you just go like this and reach into the water and grab a salmon out of the water. It's like the coolest video I have. And then I pan back in the planes in the air taking off, and it's like, there goes our ride. So, dude, awesome adventure, and I'd do it again.
You got to send that video to me. I'm not sure if I'm sure I saw it, but I had forgotten about that or what. You got to text that to me, because that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Listen,
So
we're
good.
not here to just talk about adventure. Although your company is all about adventure, and you've kind of started a really cool adventure, not in the physical sense, but in the digital sense. And so you and your team has started a really incredible YouTube channel that has been wildly successful. I mean, I think how many followers subscribers do you have now?
I think we're up to 1.3 million, which is pretty wild.
1.3 million, right? Okay. So that's
Yes.
successful, right? We'll just say that. But the reason that I'm having you on the podcast is not just, I mean, there are plenty of people with successful YouTube channels, but the premise of your YouTube channel is so amazing. It's called I Found the Truth, and your YouTube channel is all about sharing stories of Muslims who have come to Jesus, a lot of times through like really miraculous ways. And so that, I think there's a lot of people that would go out there and say that's stupid, right? And you're going to share, in fact, some of the backlash that you've gotten, some of the backlash that the people that you guys have filmed have gotten. And this is not an easy road, right? And so I think that's what I want to talk about. So tell us a little bit about the idea of I Found the Truth.
Yeah, man. So we'd wanted to film this series for a number of years, and we just didn't have the right time, didn't have the right budget. And what we knew we wanted to do was just do high-level production so it looked good. And the whole purpose was for Muslims around the world, seeking Muslims, to find a safe place to come and talk about Jesus. And so, you know, I had been traveling all over the Middle East for a number of years and loved the people and just met so many Muslims that said, man, I had a dream about this man in a white robe. I was actually in Syria on the border, or in Turkey on the border of Turkey and Syria, during the height of ISIS taking over a city called Aleppo. And literally there's a town it was a refugee camp. There was all of these families just sitting there. And I said, has anyone had a dream about a man in a white robe? And one lady says, I've had one. And she comes up and shares her dream about this man that she saw in her dream before she came to Turkey. And she's going on and on and on about this man in a white robe. And he said he loved me. He knew my name. He said that I would have joy and I'd have peace. And he said that I will be okay because he will be with me. And so I was sitting there. I don't know if you're from, I'm sure you are, John, of course, if the listeners are, but there's this cube that we'd use called the Evangel Cube, and it shows the gospel. And at one point, or on one of the slides, there's a picture of the resurrected Jesus. It's Jesus bursting out of the tomb. And I said, did the man look like this? And she started bawling and tears came down her eyes. And she said, he looked exactly like that. I said, that was Jesus. And so we started to share the gospel with her. She becomes a believer. And at that same exact moment, my brother Tommy's in the house with her husband sharing the gospel, and he becomes a believer. We don't know this. They both become believers. They're like, I just became a believer. I just did too. And then we find out they're in charge of this refugee camp. And so we then go back and start sharing the gospel with them over and over. So anyways, back to I Found the Truth. We knew that we wanted to find a space for Muslims to come and ask questions about Jesus. I had encounters with Muslims that said, I asked my imam about who this man was that came to my dream, and he punched me or he slapped me. You know, I've heard this many times, and he told me to get out of here. And in one place, it was in Africa, he said, that man is the devil. If you ever see him again, do not listen to what he says in your dreams. He is the devil. And so that's where I Found the Truth was born. We just knew we wanted to do something to create a spot where Muslims could come, hear about Jesus, learn about him in a safe place. On our website, we even have, fill out your name. It can be a fake name. Put in your email address. It can be a fake email address. If you have questions, this is a safe place to ask them.
So you share that story, and I think there's so many others. Are there any other like just insane stories? And people can go to, I Found the Truth and see some of them. But what are some of the what are some of the other stories that just blow you away?
Yeah, so we filmed a guy. His name's Osman. He's from Somalia, and Osman was born in Somalia, comes from a family of 7. He's one of 7. He had a twin brother, And at the age of 5, his family had to flee Somalia and go into Kenya. And so one night, him and his family get into a canoe, and as they're going down the river, rapid comes, flips their canoe, and he says he's floating around, trying to find, he can't even barely swim. He's 5 years old. He then finds out that his mom grabbed a couple kids, dad grabbed a couple kids, older siblings grabbed other kids. Then they get to the shore. They realize they're one kid short, and it's his twin brother. His twin brother died in the river. And he says he remembers crying and bawling and not understanding what is going on. And he gets to Kenya with his family at the border, and they're getting ready to come into Kenya, and he's just uncontrollable. He's crying nonstop. He can't stop crying. And the border agent actually takes his cigarette and puts it out on his arm, like, knock it off, kid, quit crying. And so, he pulled open his shirt, and you can see the cigarette burn there, which I have a cigarette burn too, but that's before I came to following Jesus. That's a different story. We don't want to get in that one. That involves drinking. But anyways, back to this story. And so he gets into Kenya. He's got a remarkable story. His family then moves to America, and he starts to realize, why are these people that are going to church so happy? And so his friend invites him to a youth group. He goes. The pastor introduces himself, and he goes, "Oh, you're a pastor. How does it feel sending people to hell for a living?" And the pastor goes, "Oh, okay, wow. Well, nice to meet you. I'm so-and-so." And it started a 2-year journey with Osman. And Osman had every question in the world. Who is this man? Why would he do this? Who is Jesus? Why would he love us when he had every question that Muslims have about the Holy Spirit, about the Trinity? Why would there be 3 in 1? That doesn't make sense. So anyways, after this 2-year journey, Osman's finally ready to give his life to Christ. And he tells his family, and he says, guys, I'm going to become a believer. I'm going to follow Jesus, and I'm going to follow him, and I'm no longer following Allah, and I'm going to give my life to Jesus. They said, fine, this is a choice you're making, and you are no longer our child. You are no longer part of our family. All of his siblings disowned him on the spot. Parents disowned him on the spot. This is here in America too, after he had come to America. And so then he goes back to this pastor, and he says, I'm ready to give my life to Christ, and I want to get baptized. And so he gets baptized. And so he said, when he gets baptized, he says, I don't want the church to be there. I know on Sundays you have all these people that go into, there's spotlights and tons of people there. I just want to do it out at the lake. I don't want anyone there. I want it to be me and a couple of people. Well, the church found out that he was going to get baptized, and they said, we're all going to go. So little does Osman know, he shows up to the lake, and there's not just a few people, there's 400 people there. And so when Osman gives his life to Christ, he gets baptized. He comes out of the water, and he says, you know what? I lost my family, but I gained a whole family in Christ. And they all showed up that day. As you can imagine, he came out of the water, and everyone knew his story as well, that he'd been there for 2 years searching for Jesus. And just the celebration, man, that's one soul. But the celebration of him coming out of the water and giving his life to Christ, I think is super cool. So that's one story that you can hear on our website. I get a little choked up, as you can tell. I love it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you this, and I don't want you to reveal anything that you shouldn't, right? And that would compromise anything, but how are you guys finding these incredible stories? I mean, are people reaching out to you? You just have contacts in the middle? Like, how are these coming to you?
Yeah, so we have contacts in the Middle East, and just from our work and our ministry that we've been doing there for years, we'll get a tip. So-and-so should definitely film their story. And then actually, we've had a few people write into us, hey, I'm blah, blah, blah. I'm from Somalia, or I'm from XYZ, and I would love to share my story. And so we get that a lot. And actually, we've had a few that have come in just from our requests online, and they'll come and film their story, or just word of mouth. So that's what we love it, man. We love that we can provide that platform. One thing we did recently was we actually had a roundtable series where we had 5 former Muslims discussing their faith together. And our prayer, our hope there was that there's Muslims around the world in closed and countries that we can't get into, that I can get into today. And the prayer is that these videos can go in there and these seeking Muslims can just be a fly on the wall listening to a conversation of 5 former Muslims sharing what their life's like in Jesus today.
And it's a topic that's also in a sense near and dear to my heart. Or I don't want to overuse that term, but my pastor, who was featured, I believe, in that roundtable, if I'm not mistaken, is a former Muslim, right? He's a Muslim that converted to Christianity as a young man in high school. His father was a prominent Muslim, disowned him, and so basically, I am fed, if you will, on a weekly basis because of a conversion story like this, and I thank God for that, and I love my pastor. So let me ask you this. Did you think it would be as successful as it was when you first started out?
Man, such a good question, because no, absolutely no. I mean, we filmed the first season. We loved the stories. We thought they were amazingly powerful. We didn't like all of a sudden I'm not a director. I'm not a creative. I don't even know how cameras work, and I'm in there and trying to figure out stuff in post and think. I mean, we hired amazing people to film it, but it's like, dude, you could not have gotten someone that like further away from the tech side of things. And then was like, well, where do we put this? Do we put it on YouTube or we put it on our own website? So we just had no idea what we were doing. We had no idea what we were doing with advertising. And I remember when we finally put it on YouTube, we had spent a lot of money with a firm, the high-end marketing firm, and we just put as much money as we could behind these videos to get them promoted for the first season, and they had 4,000 plays. 4,000. It was like, oh man, I thought we'd have a little bit more of a splash than that. It was rough. And, then we decided, well, let's try to keep some stuff in-house, and we kind of shook some stuff up a little bit and did some of our own type of marketing. And I still did not think, I would look up what are plaques on YouTube? Like, what does a plaque even look like? And what is that? How do you get a plaque? How many subscribers? And I saw, 100,000 subscribers. I literally thought, and this is me, I'm not even joking, I never thought in the entire lifetime of I Found the Truth it would ever hit 100,000 subscribers. And so, to answer your question, man, no, I did not. And it's been fun to learn this side of, production and, all of that goes into the process of these films. And so, yeah, man, I did not think that it would be successful. I was out in the field. I loved going, into people's homes and sharing the gospel that way. This was such a new type of world, but man, that's also what's so cool about it is you can make an impact with the digital space we have now. And so, yeah, it's pretty cool to see the Lord use it. And no, never thought that it would be successful. So pretty cool.
When did it, I mean, if it had 4,000, views, kind of that first little bit, when did it kind of start taking off? Like, when did it start snowballing? Is it like all of a sudden you woke up one day and one of them had gone viral? Or was it just kind of, instead of a home run, it was a single here, a single there, a double there, maybe a triple? Like, how did that work?
Man, definitely a single, just staying consistent. And it wasn't like a straight up. I mean, it was kind of like a hockey stick for a bit, and then it finally started to creep up. We had a couple of them go viral, but man, I never thought the ones that would actually go viral went viral. I was going, oh, this one's maybe not as, it's a strong film, but I don't know if it's going to connect with the audience. And then sure enough, we'd wake up and it's like, every notification bell was like at 99 plus, and you'd hit refresh, and it just was snowballing. And what was incredible is just seeing the global reach. I mean, we're seeing people from Indonesia, from Pakistan, from really all around the world, Christians, non-Christians, and just finding the films. So that's pretty cool. It was definitely a consistent, let's keep doing this. And then we started to see the films get used a little bit more.
So I want to get to kind of that was stupid in the sense of some of the backlash. But I have one final question here, and I guess when I think about this project, and hold on, Josh, because I just literally lost my train of thought.
You're good.
So
You're good.
I'm going to, we'll pause it. What was it going to be? Dang it. Talking about the people.
The success and the backlash, you were leaning into
Hold on,
that.
it's good. Yeah, and I was just going to, but I was going to ask you one final question. Well, I'll think of it later. So I'll pick it up from here. Man, that is so, oh, I remember what it was.
Boom. Okay.
So before we kind of get into the backlash, I want to ask what this one final question, and you come from a family that kind of has devoted themselves to Middle East ministry, and your dad has written an incredible book all about this phenomenon of Muslims seeing Jesus in visions and dreams. Can you talk a little bit more about that phenomenon? I don't think I realize, and I don't think people realize just how, and I know you shared that initial story, but how much of a thing this is. Like, it's happening a lot.
It's happening a lot. And a lot of Muslims around the world don't have someone to talk to about it. You know, they have a dream about Jesus and they have no one to share it with, or they go to try to find answers and they can't find answers. So, you know, I do believe, since Islam's such a hard religion to, you know, I mean, people listening to this, there's amazing Muslims, so many that we've met, but there's a lot of hardness, a lot of darkness, a lot of, man, just spiritual warfare wrapped up into every facet of their life. And when we go into these countries, we feel it, our families feel it. But when Muslims have dreams about Jesus, it seems like, oh, maybe what? Like, not that many. If you take 100,000 people, maybe a few. I mean, there's like a lot of people that have dreams about Jesus. And I think why? People maybe say why. I think that it is such a hard religion to break into. I believe that Jesus is going in and meeting these Muslims in some of the hardest areas in the world because the gospel hasn't penetrated some of these areas. And so I do believe Jesus is honoring them. I believe Jesus is going and visiting them, and he's making himself known so that when maybe one day somebody comes along and shares the gospel and or answers some questions about Jesus, they go, oh my goodness, I've seen this man. It's to tell you how common it is, John, like when we go into homes, that's one of the questions I always ask is who's had a dream about this man in a white robe? And dude, on every trip we go on, there's always at least one that has had a legit dream where you're like, man, this is like a legit dream that Jesus showed up. And it's not like a dream that you wake up and forget about it. It's an HD, cannot forget that dream. You know, that's a dream that I will always remember because I felt this peace or this joy. You know, I may be in a marriage that I get, you know, was forced into. I may be in very unhappy circumstances, but that dream that I felt, I won't forget that. I felt joy and peace that I've never felt. So, man, I do believe that Jesus is honoring them, and we're seeing it all over the place, and it's not uncommon. I mean, for a while, I was like, man, dreams and visions, that seems a little kooky, like, you know, very charismatic. But man, you hear these dreams, and then you're going, okay, Lord, you're doing something here. You're softening their hearts.
That's awesome. So let's move to, you know, in a sense, what makes this stupid, right? I mean, we all have the stories, the Charlie Hebdo, you know, like one cartoon that's, you know, deemed inappropriate, and the backlash that happens in France, you know, years ago, and similarly, in a way, I mean, you guys, as the people, the team behind this, have gotten backlash and death threats, especially the people in the videos. Tell us about some of the things that people have said to you and threatened you when it comes to putting out this content.
Yeah, I mean, we get we get comments constantly. I mean, every day we're having to go through and delete just horrible things that they're saying towards the person that's being interviewed. Or, I know who you are behind this project. We're going to find you. You know, people like you deserve a special spot in hell for creating lies and disillusionment. And so yeah, we see it all over the place. And really, we're just sharing someone's story, a testimony that's true. We're not trying to take the Bible and the Quran and go verse by verse and say, this is right, this is wrong. None of that stuff. These are people that have had true stories, and we're just sharing their story. But with that, you have so many Muslims, even non-Muslims, just atheist people that don't agree with our message, that really are trying to shut it down, that will do everything they can to just try to get the content removed. We have so many things flagged, or people say it's inappropriate with religious content, but we're not really going over the top. We're just sharing somebody's story about what it's like becoming a follower of Jesus. And so it's sad, a lot of the comments we get towards the people that will come on and share their testimony, we will have to go through and delete those, because, man, there's comments that come in that just rip someone to shreds. And it's like, I mean, it's the internet, and that comes as no surprise to anyone listening. But, yeah, definitely threats. Definitely, we got to be safe with. There's some people we've had on that we haven't shown their face. They don't want to show their face, and so they'll be backlit, and use a fake voice and all that. But man, it's incredible what the Lord's been able to do. But we're definitely hearing from a lot of people just how horrible we are, how the content is lies, and that these are hired actors, that it's all fake. So anyways, it's just kind of the nature of what we're doing.
How do you deal with that, right? Like, I'm a writer, and like, I'll get someone, I joke about this, or I'm going to joke about this, but it's something that really happened. Like, I wrote an article a few weeks back, and I saw that like one of my regular readers liked a comment that was slightly critical of what I had written. And I like reached out to that person, and I was like, listen, I didn't mean to offend you. I'm not, dying on this hill, but I did think this, and they responded, they're like, you don't have to apologize for, like, it's okay that we can disagree, or I see it a little bit differently. Like, so my point is, one little thing like that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't, I'm so sorry. But
Yeah.
you're getting these comments on the regular. How do you handle this, especially as someone who's, has a family? Like, do you ever feel scared? Are you looking over your shoulder at the grocery store at times? Like, how do you handle that?
No, thankfully I don't feel like an immediate danger, for sure. If anything, we want to protect the people that come on. I mean, being in missions, going into places I should not go, time and time again, this isn't out of, I don't want to say arrogance, but this is just trust in the Lord. Like, when the Lord wants me home, it's time to come home. And one of a president that we worked for at our former ministry, he said, we really are bulletproof until the Lord wants us home, right? And so we feel that. I sense that for sure. But really, it's done in the name of love too. Like, that's one thing. If someone's going to really try to hurt us over it, like, I mean, these are just people sharing their story. It's not like they're trying to create lies and create, chaos. And so I think people will, hopefully, we're knock on wood, but we're trying to keep ourselves safe, and trying to keep the people that are on protected as best as we can.
Yeah. So what is kind of the plans for the future? I mean, you have how many videos do you actually have on YouTube now?
So we're in the middle of season 5, and on YouTube, let's see, each season has about 5 to 6 videos. We're probably over, with short video, probably close to like 50 plus videos on YouTube. Some of the shorts maybe close to like 60 plus, but yeah, man, we just a lot of variety out there. Muslims that had abortions, right? Like, that's a big thing to do within the scope of Islam. And then just covering vast array of topics, New Age versus like Islam, and then all of a sudden you throw a little Jesus in there, and your parents are like, no, you can explore any religion, but once you explore Jesus, that's off limits. You see family members wanting to kill their kids because they become Christians, right? And in Islam, it's typically the uncles that would carry that out. And so, man, we've just got incredible stories that, we're filming. We're going to film a guy that I'm pumped about. He was in prison in Egypt, escaped on a jet ski, and has a phenomenal story. I'm excited to tell his story. We're going to film that here at the end of the month. And so I just think there's some really brave people out there. Another incredible story that comes to my mind as well is 2 women that were in Iran and were thrown into Evin prison, which is like one of the worst prisons to be thrown into. You walk in, there's one guy that got footage of the prison as he walked in, and there's just people strung up. And like when you're looking up the levels and you see all the bars of where people are at in their jail cells, people just strung up, just dead. People just hanging there, haven't had food in 2 days. Horrible prison. These women went there, started sharing the gospel with the women that they were in prison with. They said they didn't have a bathroom. They didn't have food. The food they would get had worms in it, and they got sick, and they were throwing up all the time and sitting in their own urine, and it just smelled awful. But in those moments, God met them there. And those 2 women would sing. They would sing scriptures, and these other women that are in there for horrible things, horrible crimes, are all of a sudden getting exposed to the gospel. A lot of where they're at wasn't even penetrated with light. They're just in this dungeon and they're sharing the gospel. They're singing worship. They're talking about scripture. And these women that are prostitutes that have been thrown into prison, they want to know who Jesus is. They want to know why they have joy, why they have hope. So these women, when we asked them, was it worth it going to prison and almost dying for your faith? Absolutely. In fact, those are some of the closest moments we've felt with the Lord ever. We long for those moments again, to feel his presence in some of those darkest moments of our life, and seeing his gospel penetrate other prisoners inside of there. So, man, I just, it's a privilege to be able to share the stories and just see what the Lord's doing on the front lines.
That is awesome. I cannot wait to see some of those things. So if people want to watch the videos, if they want to share them, where should they go?
They can go to ifoundthetruth.com, or you can go to YouTube and just type in I Found the Truth, and you'll find us there.
And I think, you're a ministry, so if they want to support you as well, are there ways to do that?
Yeah, so you can actually go to unchartedministries.com, and then you can click support. And then you can find, I Found the Truth, or you can even find personal stuff, personal support there as well. And so, man, thank you for even asking that. But yes, you can go there if you want to support the program. These seasons aren't cheap. These episodes, filming and all that, it's not cheap. So we have to go out and raise the funds before every production. And that's currently what we're doing for season 6. And so, yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Josh, thank you so much for joining us on the That Was Stupid podcast. This is our final episode of our season 2, and I think it's a fitting way to end it. That this, in a sense, stupid moment is one that is so life-changing and life-giving for people across the globe. And now our audience has a chance to, in a sense, partner and support a stupid decision that then became life-changing, which is all about what we are about. So thanks so much for joining us, Josh. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Wow. And I really mean it when I say I think this is an awesome bookend to season 2 of the That Was Stupid podcast, because it really is an opportunity for you to join in the work that God is doing through Josh and this organization. Maybe you are out there listening and you're just kind of craving an opportunity to make an investment that will have impact. And I know Josh personally. I know how he stewards the resources that are given to him, and I just know that it would be a good investment. So if that is on your heart at all, go to unchartedministries.com or ifoundthetruth.com. Share them, share the videos. It's awesome to see how these things are happening. Listen, we will be back for season 3. I will announce that the sooner we get to the release. But I just want to say thank you. Have a great Christmas and holiday season. If you have thoughts, ideas for guests, just shoot them to me, and I will see you on the next season of That Was Stupid.